Our lesson today is on rocks, and the subject is called biology. Our subtopic for today is types and formation of rocks. I'll be dividing the topic into the various subtopics. So this is lesson 1, being types and formation of rocks, looking specifically at igneous rocks. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe one of the major types of rocks, which is igneous rocks, how they are formed, and their characteristics. Now, these are some of the key terms we'll be coming across, we'll be encountering in this lesson. We have volcanic, extrusive, erupted, molten, aggregate, igneous, Plutonic, intrusive, magma, massive, crystalline, cooling, solidification, stratified, fossil free. So these are key terms. These are words we'll come across as we are having this lesson. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe or explain each of these terms. Now, when we talk about rocks, what do we mean, or what comes to mind? Yes, the harder or larger stones, or most of the solid matter or components we found on the Earth's crust. Very good, yes. Now, rocks are found everywhere. We find rocks in our homes, on the streets, in building construction sites, and all that. We find it everywhere. Now, rocks are used for a lot of things which are of essence to us. We define rocks as an aggregate of minerals and substances found in the Earth's crust. When we talk about an aggregate, we are looking at a composition of a lot of substances, a lot of things coming together to form a whole. An aggregate, it means that a lot of different substances are coming together to make up a rock. So substances such as fossils, dead organic remains, plants and animals decomposing and decaying, soil, you have all these materials coming together to form a rock. So we refer to it as an aggregate of minerals and substances which are found in the Earth's crust. Now, these minerals, they include gold, diamond, aluminium, and all the minerals you can think of. Yes. So moving on, we are going to look at types and formation of rocks. Before that, what type of rock do you know from JHS? You've learned about rocks. What type of rock do you know? Yes, we have sedimentary rocks, igneous rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Now today we are going to look at igneous rock. When you hear igneous, what comes to mind? Igneous. Yes. Ignite. Igneous. Ignite. To fire up. Yes. So that is igneous rock for you. So when you think ignite, you think fire. You think heat. You think heat up. To light up something. So igneous rocks are mostly formed from a hot mass. Now this hot mass is known as magma. This magma is found beneath or underneath the Earth's crust. Alright? Yes. Now when heat is applied to something, that particular thing has a tendency to move or change its position, right? Yes. Now this is what we are referring to when we talk about igneous rocks, therefore how they are formed. Now let's picture a saucepan on fire with stew in it. After putting all your ingredients together to form the stew, you let it simmer for a while, right? Yes. Now initially, when the heat is not too much, you realize that little bubbles are forming in there. It's simmering. Now when intense heat is applied to this stew, at a point you find some of the stew coming out, shooting up and coming out. If you are even close by, you can get hit. Yes, that's how igneous rocks are formed. Now the heat in there, the heat which is the fire moving in, you are talking about the heat in the earth crust, will cause the molten magma being the stew, all right, the molten magma being the stew, to move out of the saucepan being the earth crust, the earth. So you see that as more heat is compounding or forming in the saucepan, the stew will want to come out of the saucepan. You get the idea? Very good. Yes. Now this brings us to the two types of rocks. So we've said that igneous rocks are formed from the cooling. It first has to cool, and then solidification. It has to form a solid. The solid is the rock of the molten magma, which has erupted, come out from the earth's crust or mantle. Yes, so that brings us to the two types of rocks, which is the two types of igneous rocks, which is the plutonic or intrusive igneous rock, and then the volcanic or extrusive igneous rock. When you hear plutonic or intrusive, what comes to mind? Intrusive. Yes, inside, inner, inwards, internal. Very good. So we are looking at plutonic rocks forming inside the earth's crust, deep within the earth crust. So plutonic igneous rocks are rocks which are formed when the cooling and solidification of magma occurs deep in the earth crust. Now back to the scenario of the stew. You see, although the heat causes some of the stew, the particles of the stew, to move outwards from the saucepan, there are still some which will continue to remain in the saucepan, right? Yes. Now this stew which remains in the saucepan does not have enough heat to cause it to move out of the saucepan. So what happens? After this heat has gone down, you realize that the stew begins to form properly. So the same way as the magma begins to cool down, it solidifies. Now when it solidifies or hardens, it forms a plutonic intrusive igneous rock. It means it's formed inside the earth crust. Intrusive. Now this type of rock is known as plutonic or intrusive igneous rock. Now the other type, how do you think it will be formed? Yes, the particles that came out of the saucepan, it went what? External to the saucepan, right? Yes. So that is the other type, which is extrusive or volcanic igneous rocks. You see how volcanoes are? You see that there's a hot mass coming out of the volcano. Yes, that hot mass is the magma. Now when it comes out, it's known as lava. Very good. Now picturing the saucepan scenario again, you realize that the particles of the stew that comes out of the saucepan, when they get onto your skin, immediately you feel a burn, but after a while it cools down, right? Yes. The same way, when the volcano erupts, you see, and then the magma is forced out, forming hot lava flows. At a point, you see, when it comes out of the surface, you realize that the temperature outside is lesser than what is inside. So the lava that has come out of the volcano will cool down. Now once it cools down, once it cools down, it forms a different type of rock, which is known as a volcanic igneous rock. It's also known as extrusive igneous rock because the cooling occurs external. It occurs on the Earth's surface, extrusive. So we say volcanic igneous rocks are formed when lava cools and solidifies over the Earth's surface as a result of the eruption of the lava due to intense heat, extreme heat, and pressure within the volcano. I hope you get the difference between the volcanic rock and the plutonic rock. Very good. So that brings us to characteristics of igneous rocks. Now, what do you think are the characteristics of igneous rocks? Or what do you expect to see once you see an igneous rock? Yes, you find a shiny surface. It has a shiny appearance. They are crystalline. It means they form crystals. Because of how they are formed, the minerals are able to form crystals in there. And then they do not contain fossils. They do not contain any dead or decaying organic remains. Is it because of how they are formed? Now, when the magma is solidifying, it doesn't solidify over years, such that plants and animals are dying and then compounding onto it. No. As soon as the magma erupts, it cools down and solidifies. So there is no addition of any other material. So if it is magma, you expect to find only magma. You don't expect to find any other material. So it does not contain any fossils. They are not stratified, such that, unlike other types of rocks, an example being sedimentary rocks, where you would find it formed in layers. When I say layers, I'm talking about over the years. You find a layer of rock, then you find that some soil added onto it, and then an animal came and died on it. After a while, some soil was added, and then some plants decayed, animals, all these mixing up with minerals, mixing up to form a rock over the years. That is a sedimentary rock. Unlike a sedimentary rock, the igneous rock is not formed in layers. It's not stratified. And then also, igneous rocks are massive, they are heavy, and they are hard. They have a shiny appearance, as I said earlier, and they are resistant to erosion. Now, when we say they are resistant to erosion, we are saying that when you have an earthquake erosion prone area, you don't expect igneous rocks to easily break apart when in contact with water or moving water, as we know erosion to be. Unlike sedimentary rocks, which can easily break apart, igneous rocks are resistant to erosion. Now, this brings us to the end of our topic for today. For today, we looked at our topic, which is rocks. We looked at the types and formation of rocks. We looked at igneous rocks, how they are formed and their characteristics. We looked at some of our key terms, and then we went ahead to define what a rock is, the types of rocks, and then we looked specifically at one type, being igneous rocks, the types of igneous rocks, its characteristics, how it's formed, and then examples of igneous rocks. So on that, you will find some assignments at the end of the week on rocks, the types of rocks. So I would urge you to do more research and read ahead for our next class. Thank you, and see you in our next class.